First contact protocols. The meritocracy research vessel Exemplar drifted silently through the void, its crystalline hull glimmering faintly in the light of a distant red dwarf. Science Director Valzine stood motionless before the curved viewport, four slender arms clasped behind his back, compound eyes reflecting the stars like faceted jewels. Director, called Navigator Trill from her station, sensors have detected unusual energy patterns from the third system ahead. The signatures don't match any known configuration in our database. Valzine turned, skin shifting from a peaceful azure to an interested yellow. Unknown technology. Fascinating. Perhaps another client species for the collective. The meritocracy had encountered 12 spacefaring civilizations in their 1,000-year history of exploration. All had eventually joined their harmonious alliance, contributing their unique perspectives to the greater whole. Adjust course, Navigator. Let us investigate this anomaly. The Exemplar altered its trajectory, sophisticated propulsion systems barely causing a ripple in the ship's perfect equilibrium. This was the pinnacle of meritocracy engineering, elegant, efficient, and designed to be as non-disruptive as possible. Violence had been engineered out of their society millennia ago, and their technology reflected this philosophical imperative. 3 cycles later, the Exemplar entered the outskirts of an unremarkable yellow star system. The energy signatures had grown stronger, emanating from what appeared to be a vessel in the asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. Magnify, ordered Valzine. The holographic display zoomed in on a ship unlike anything in the meritocracy archives. It was angular, asymmetrical, with protruding structures that served no apparent aerodynamic purpose. Most disturbing were the obvious weapon emplacements dotting its hull like pustules on diseased flesh. A warship, whispered xenobiologist Mara, her skin paling to a sickly white. We haven't encountered a militaristic species in over 500 years. Perhaps we're misinterpreting, Valzine suggested, though his own skin had taken on an anxious green tinge. Let's observe before making contact. Chief Analyst Cord, begin passive scans. The Exemplar maintained its distance, sophisticated sensors probing the alien vessel without detection. With each passing moment, the crew's discomfort grew. Director, Cord's voice trembled slightly. I've compiled the preliminary analysis. You should see this immediately. The holographic display filled with schematics of the human vessel. Cord highlighted various systems as he spoke. Their ship defies rational design principles. Look here, they've included redundant systems throughout the entire vessel. Triple backup life support, decentralized power cores, manual overrides for every automated function. Cord's skin had turned a deep purple of confusion. It's as if they expect catastrophic failure at any moment. Perhaps their technology is primitive, suggested Navigator Trill. No, Cord replied. Many systems show remarkable sophistication, but they've designed everything to continue functioning under conditions that would. He paused. That would kill any rational crew. Valzine studied the schematics carefully. These compartmentalized sections. Blast shields, Cord said. The entire ship can seal off damaged areas while maintaining functionality. And these, he highlighted numerous small chambers, are what appear to be emergency medical facilities distributed throughout the vessel. They expect casualties, Mara whispered. They design their ships assuming crew members will be injured or killed. The bridge fell silent as the implications settled over them. The meritocracy, like all advanced species they'd encountered, had developed spaceflight as a natural extension of their evolution, a peaceful expansion into the stars. This species had apparently developed spaceflight as a continuation of conflict. Their power systems are most concerning, Cord continued. They utilize a fusion reactor as primary power, but maintain separate fission reactors and chemical energy stores as backups. The inefficiency is staggering, but, he paused, they could sustain critical functions after losing 2/3 of their power capacity. What species builds this way? Asked Navigator Trill. One that expects to be attacked, Valzine replied softly. one that prioritizes survival over efficiency. Director, called Communications Officer Jen, we're detecting transmission bursts from the vessel. They appear to be sending data packages to a location beyond the system's edge. Can you decode them? Working on it now. Their encryption is unusual. It changes constantly. The room's atmosphere grew tenser. Every revelation about this unknown species painted a more disturbing picture. I've managed to access their biological data, Mara announced suddenly. They call themselves humans. And Director, they're endothermic carbon-based omnivores with an extraordinary tolerance for environmental extremes. The display shifted to show anatomical diagrams of the human form. Bipedal, symmetrical, unremarkable at first glance. They can survive temperature variations that would kill most sentient species. Mara continued, her voice rising with disbelief. They can function after significant fluid loss, continue conscious operation with multiple traumatic injuries, and their healing capabilities are remarkable. But most concerning is their neurochemistry. Mira highlighted the human brain. They appear to produce heightened cognitive function during stress and danger. Their decision-making actually improves in life-threatening situations. That's evolutionarily backward, objected Cord. All rational species evolve to avoid danger, not function better within it. These humans, Mara said, evolved as pursuit predators on a death world. Their historical records indicate they hunted by literally chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The implications stunned the meritocracy crew. Their own evolution had been one of gradual cooperation and environmental harmony. The notion of a species that had evolved through persistent aggression was almost incomprehensible. Director, Jen called urgently. I've decoded portions of their transmissions. Their military communications. This vessel is conducting something called combat exercises. They're practicing warfare, Director. Valzine's skin shifted to the deep blue of decision. We need more information before determining how to proceed. Chief Analyst, continue your scans. I want to understand their capabilities fully. Hours passed as the Exemplar observed the human warship. Each new revelation deepened their concern. Their weapons systems are remarkably diverse, reported Cord. Energy weapons, projectile launchers, and they appear to be missiles with atomic warheads. They would use atomic weapons in space. Valzine couldn't hide his horror. And their crew complement is extraordinary, added Mara. Over 2,000 individuals aboard, organized in a rigid hierarchy. But here's what's truly remarkable. They cross-train extensively. Their warriors can perform engineering functions. Their scientists receive combat training. Every human aboard can apparently perform multiple roles. Valzine stared at the human vessel, trying to comprehend a species so fundamentally different from any the meritocracy had encountered. Director, Jen's voice rose in alarm. They've detected us. Their sensors just locked onto our position. Impossible, Cord objected. Our cloaking technology. They're hailing us, Jen interrupted. Audio and visual transmission. Valzine steadied himself. First contact protocols were clear, but they'd never been designed for a situation like this. Put them through, main display. The holographic screen flickered, then resolved into the image of a human. The creature stood straight-backed, dressed in a dark uniform adorned with symbolic markings. Its skin was a pale pinkish hue, its face dominated by forward-facing eyes that bored into Valzine with unsettling intensity. Unknown vessel, the human spoke, its voice carrying a tone that sent instinctive warning signals through Valzine's nervous system. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Alliance vessel Indomitable. You have been observing us for the past 6 hours. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Valzine noted the name of their ship with a chill. Indomitable. Unconquerable. Their very identity was defined by conflict. I am Science Director Valzine of the Meritocracy Research Vessel Exemplar, he replied, forcing calm into his voice. We are peaceful explorers seeking contact with new civilizations. The human's expression didn't change, but Valzine noticed subtle shifts in its posture. A tensing, a readiness. Unlike the meritocracy, whose emotional states were displayed clearly through skin color, these humans concealed their intentions, another evolutionary trait for a predator species. Peaceful explorers who cloak their vessels and conduct detailed scans of military ships. The human's lips pulled back slightly, revealing blunt teeth. You understand why that might seem contradictory, Director Valzine. Before Valzine could respond, another alarm sounded on the Exemplar's bridge. Director, Navigator Trill's voice was tight with fear. 3 more human vessels just appeared at the system's edge. They're moving toward our position at high acceleration. On the display, Captain Vasquez's expression shifted slightly. It seems we have much to discuss, Director. I suggest you power down your scanning equipment and prepare to receive a delegation from the Indomitable. We are very interested in learning more about your meritocracy. As the transmission ended, Valzine turned to his crew. Their skin colors unanimously shifted to the pale yellow of fear. They were waiting for us, whispered Cord. Those ships didn't just arrive. They were positioned to cut off our retreat. They let us scan them, Mirror realized aloud. They wanted us to see their capabilities. Valzine stared at the human warship through the viewport. For the first time in his long career of peaceful exploration, he felt genuine fear, not just for himself, but for the meritocracy. They had encountered something unprecedented. A species that had taken the crucible of evolution and emerged not with cooperation, but with organized aggression as their defining trait. Prepare for contact, he ordered quietly, and transmit everything we've learned to Meritocracy Command. Mark it highest priority. As the human delegation prepared to board, Valzine couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had suddenly become a much more dangerous place. The paradigm shift. The human delegation stood in the Exemplar's conference chamber, a study in controlled power. Captain Elena Vasquez was flanked by 4 officers, each standing with the same alert posture that suggested they could spring into action at any moment. Despite the meritocracy's superior numbers, 8 crew members present, Valzine couldn't shake the sensation that they were somehow outmatched. Your ship is quite remarkable, Director, Vasquez said, her eyes taking in the crystalline architecture and flowing design of the chamber. I've never seen anything quite like it. Thank you, Captain, Valzine replied, his skin maintaining a carefully neutral blue. We've spent centuries perfecting our designs for maximum harmony and efficiency. Harmony, Vasquez repeated the word thoughtfully, an interesting priority for spacecraft design. The human behind her, introduced as Commander Chen, security officer, seemed to be scanning every detail of the room, his gaze methodically cataloging potential threats and escape routes. The behavior was deeply unsettling to the meritocracy crew, who had never evolved such instincts. Perhaps we should discuss why you were observing our vessel, Vasquez continued, bringing the conversation directly to its purpose with a directness that bordered on aggression in meritocracy culture. As I mentioned, we are explorers, Valzine said. When we detected unusual energy signatures, we investigated, as is our custom when encountering new species. And what did you learn from your scans? There was something predatory in the way she asked the question, as though testing whether they would lie. Valzine hesitated, then decided honesty was the only viable approach. We learned that your species approaches spaceflight very differently than any we have encountered before. Different how? Your vessels are designed for conflict, Cord interjected, unable to contain his scientific curiosity despite the tension. Multiple redundancies, compartmentalized systems, distributed command functions, all optimized for sustaining damage while maintaining operational capability. Instead of denying this assessment, Captain Vasquez smiled slightly. You sound surprised. We are, Valzine admitted. The development of interstellar travel typically coincides with the achievement of species-wide peace. War becomes evolutionarily disadvantageous once a certain technological threshold is reached. A sound emerged from one of the humans, A short, sharp exhalation that Valzine would later learn was called a laugh. "I assure you," Vask said, "that humanity has found war to be quite evolutionarily advantageous throughout our history." The casual way she stated this sent ripples of color across the skin of the meritocracy crew. Flashes of alarm, confusion, and fear. "You speak of war as something positive," Mira said, her scientific detachment momentarily breaking. "How can organized violence be beneficial to a species?" Vasks exchanged glances with her officers. "Your species has never known war. The meritocracy evolved beyond conflict 50,000 years ago," Valzine explained. "We found cooperation to be more efficient than competition." "Interesting," Vask said, in a tone suggesting the opposite. "Human history has been shaped by conflict. It drives our innovation, tests our adaptability, and yes, strengthens our species. The weak fail, the strong survive and pass on their traits." The meritocracy crew's skin collectively paled to a ghostly white. This philosophy was antithetical to everything they believed. "But surely," Valzine ventured, "once you achieve spaceflight, you recognize the futility of such aggression." Vasquez's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "On the contrary, Director, the challenges of space exploration only reinforce the value of our approach. Space is unforgiving. It tries to kill you in 100 different ways. Our vessels reflect that reality." "But the inefficiency," Cord began. "Efficiency isn't our primary concern," interrupted one of the humans, Dr. Rivera, their chief scientist. "Survivability is. Our redundant systems aren't a design flaw. They're a deliberate choice. Perhaps," Vask suggested, "we should show you rather than tell you. Would you care to visit the Indomitable? A cultural exchange, if you will." Valzine considered the invitation, skin shifting through various colors of uncertainty. Protocol suggested caution, but curiosity, the driving force of meritocracy exploration, demanded they learn more. "We would be honored," he decided finally. 6 hours later, Valzine stood on the bridge of the human warship, struggling to process everything he had witnessed. Where the exemplar was a marvel of integrated design, the Indomitable was a testament to compartmentalized functionality. Exposed conduits, manual controls alongside automated systems, weapon stations integrated directly into the command center. Most disturbing were the humans themselves. They moved with purpose, communicated in clipped, efficient phrases, and demonstrated an awareness of their surroundings that spoke of evolved predatory instincts. They didn't flow with their environment. They dominated it. "This is our combat information center," Vasks explained, gesturing to a holographic display similar to, yet fundamentally different from, the meritocracy technology. "From here, we can coordinate all ship functions, even if other command nodes are compromised." "You design assuming failure," Valzine observed. "We design assuming reality," Vasks corrected. "In 200 years of space exploration, humanity has faced solar flares, micrometeoroid impacts, system failures, and yes, hostile encounters. Those who prepared survived. Those who didn't. Hostile encounters?" Mira asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her discomfort. "With other species." A strange silence fell over the human bridge crew. Vasquez's expression became unreadable. "Not all species we've encountered share your peaceful approach, Director," she said finally. "The galaxy can be a dangerous place." Before Valzine could process this disturbing statement, alarms blared throughout the Indomitable. The human crew snapped into action with practiced precision, moving to stations without needing orders. "Contact," called a human at one of the forward stations. 3 vessels just dropped out of FTL at the system edge. "Configuration unknown." "Battle stations," Vasquez ordered calmly, as though she'd said it 1,000 times before. Around the bridge, humans donned protective gear and secured equipment. "Shields up. Bring weapon systems to standby." Valzine felt his skin flash involuntarily to panic purple. "Captain, the meritocracy is peaceful. We have no enemies." Those aren't meritocracy ships, Director. Vasquez cut him off, studying the holographic display. And they're not responding to hails. The main view screen showed 3 obsidian vessels approaching rapidly, their design as alien to Valzine as the humans had initially been. "We need to return to the exemplar," insisted Valzine. "We can attempt communication." "No time," Vasquez replied. "Commander Chen, escort our guests to Safe Zone 3. Dr. Rivera, continue attempting first contact protocols." As Chen led the meritocracy delegation through corridors suddenly alive with purposeful human activity, Valzine realized with horror what was happening. These humans weren't just prepared for conflict, they were comfortable with it. The rising tension that had the meritocracy crew nearly paralyzed with stress seemed to energize the humans. The safe zone proved to be a reinforced compartment deep within the ship. As they entered, Valzine noticed emergency supplies, medical equipment, and what appeared to be weapons stored in secured cabinets. "You'll be safe here," Chen assured them, his manner professional and calm. "This area has independent life support, radiation shielding, and can withstand substantial structural damage to the surrounding hull. You designed parts of your ship specifically to endure while the rest is destroyed?" Mara asked, horrified. Chen gave that same short laugh Valzine had heard earlier. "Of course. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's the human way." The deck shuddered beneath them. Impact or weapons fire, Valzine couldn't tell. Chen's hand moved instinctively to the weapon holstered at his side, then relaxed when no immediate threat presented itself. "Who are they?" Cord asked. "These new arrivals." "Unknown," Chen admitted, "but their approach vector and refusal to communicate suggests hostile intent." "This is madness," whispered Trill. "We should be attempting diplomatic contact, not preparing for violence." Chen's expression softened slightly. "With respect, Navigator, we are attempting diplomatic contact. But we're also preparing for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. That's not pessimism, it's pragmatism." Another shudder ran through the ship, stronger this time. Chen touched a communication device at his collar. "Chen to bridge. Status. The unknowns have opened fire," came Vasquez's steady voice. "Minimal damage to our outer hull. We're returning fire. Targeted strikes only. Dr. Rivera is continuing contact attempts." Chen acknowledged the update, then turned back to the meritocracy crew. "This is why we build our ships the way we do," he said simply. The next hour was the most terrifying of Valzine's extensive life. The Indomitable rocked repeatedly as it engaged the unknown vessels. Systems failed and were rerouted. Damage reports flowed continuously through the communication systems, and through it all, the humans remained focused, adaptive, and utterly unbroken by circumstances that would have shattered meritocracy morale. When Chen finally escorted them back to the bridge, Valzine was astonished to find it functional despite obvious damage. A section of ceiling had collapsed, now pushed aside and secured. One console smoldered, attended by a human with a fire suppression device. Captain Vasquez stood at the center, a small cut on her forehead leaving a trail of red blood, a sight that particularly disturbed the Hemosian-blooded meritocracy crew. "The situation is contained," Vasquez informed them, as though discussing something as mundane as a minor course correction. "2 of the vessels have been disabled. The 3rd retreated to FTL. Casualties?" asked Valzine, dreading the answer. 7 injured, no fatalities," Vasquez replied. "Dr. Rivera was able to establish limited communication once we demonstrated our defensive capabilities. They're called the Vorax. Apparently, they consider this system part of their territory." "And now?" Mara asked hesitantly. "Now we negotiate," Vasquez said simply. From a position of mutual respect, as the humans efficiently restored their bridge to functionality, Valzine found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about advanced civilization. The meritocracy had achieved peace through evolutionary consensus, gradually selecting for cooperation over conflict. Humans had apparently taken a different path, embracing conflict, integrating it into their identity, and emerging stronger for it. "You're troubled, Director," Vasquez observed, approaching where he stood by the viewport. "I'm reassessing," he admitted. "Your species approaches existence so differently from our own. You prepare for the worst at all times." Vasquez nodded. "And hope for the best. The two aren't mutually exclusive. The resources you devote to redundancy, to weapons, to training for disaster scenarios. In the meritocracy, we would consider it wasteful, inefficient. And if today had gone differently, if those ships had targeted your exemplar instead of the Indomitable, the implication hung in the air between them. The exemplar, for all its elegant efficiency, would have been destroyed in minutes by the attack the Indomitable had weathered. Perhaps, Valzine said slowly, his skin shifting to the deep green of new understanding, efficiency isn't always the most important design principle. Vasquez smiled. A genuine expression this time, not the predatory one he'd noticed earlier. "There's hope for diplomatic relations between us yet, Director." As preparations began for formal communication with both the meritocracy and the newly encountered Vorax, Valzine found himself contemplating the future. The galaxy had just become more complex, more dangerous, and paradoxically, more interesting than the meritocracy had ever imagined. Humans were indeed terrifying. Their vessels designed for war, their bodies evolved for persistence, their minds adapted to function under stress that would incapacitate other species. But perhaps, Valzine reflected, watching the humans efficiently coordinate repairs while simultaneously preparing for diplomatic negotiations, that wasn't entirely a bad thing. After all, the galaxy had just revealed itself to be a more dangerous place than the meritocracy had believed. And in a dangerous galaxy, perhaps humans and their warships were exactly the allies one would want.